All right, guys. Starting up a new series here. It's one that I've been having planned out for probably a couple of weeks now, and I'm very excited about it. The name of this series is going to be called Sub Sandwich Lives Matter. I cracked myself up. But anyway, Sub Sandwich Lives Matter. And obviously, it is a play on words when it comes to this movement going on called the Black Lives Matter movement. But I'm just kind of having fun with the name a little bit, naming this series Sub Sandwich Lives Matter. And the reason why I chose that of all things is a couple of reasons why. One reason why is because, of course, when you make, like if you go to Subway and you get them to make you a sub sandwich, there's all these different types of ingredients to choose from, different meats and cheeses and vegetables and seasonings and all that you can put on the sandwich. And it seems like the more you put on the sandwich, the better it tastes. And that's how it is in the body of Christ. The more different types of people you have, the more diversity that you have. When you have different people with different types of backgrounds and different types of gifts and callings and things like that, the more diverse and the more variety that you have, the better it seems like. You get it? The better the sandwich tastes, the better the kingdom of God is, and the greater it can expand when you've got that diversity. So that's kind of what it represents. And of course, you gotta put that salt on there because, of course, as Christians, we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. See what I did there? Anyway, but that's one reason why. But the other reason why is this. This series basically is gonna talk about how over the years the church world has used the Bible in different and incorrect ways to suppress people, to put people down, to hurt people, and they've used certain verses or stories in the Bible the wrong way. They've taken them out of their biblical context and twisted them based off of what I call common social prejudices. So whatever the common prejudice is in a certain area, there's always going to be somebody that will use certain things in the Bible to use it against people in ways that it's really not supposed to be at all. Okay, and so there's different groups that I'm going to talk about. The three main groups I'm going to talk about throughout this series will be blacks, women, and people in the LGBT community. Now, those are some of the big groups, especially here in America, that have really been done wrong by people using the Bible incorrectly. And I'll also briefly, later on in this series, touch on red-headed people and left-handed people who have also been done the wrong way by the Bible. And some of y'all probably knew that, but for those of you who don't know that, you're probably sitting there thinking, what? Redheads and left-handed people were done wrong because of stuff in the Bible, people using it the wrong way? Yeah, that actually happened. So that's what I want to get into. But like I said, there's another reason why I called it Sub Sandwich Lives Matter, and the reason is because, like I said, one of the groups I'm going to talk about is, LGBT people, and the funny thing about it is LGBT sounds like BLT. You get it, like the sandwich BLT, bacon, lettuce, tomatoes. see what I'm saying? So really, when we call ourselves LGBT, we just sound like a big, delicious sub sandwich all by ourselves anyway. So that's where that comes in. Y'all know how I am. I'm kind of ridiculous, but you get the point. I like being creative. But so that's where that comes from. So let's get into this. This is going to be part one of this series. And this part one is going to be on how the Bible was used against blacks. And the name of this series, the name of part one of this series is going to be Raise, Race, Raise. So raise, R-A-I-S-E, race, R-A-C-E, comma, raise, R-A-Y-S. So raise, race, raise. And what I mean by that is this. what some people have done, well, I started to say used to do, but some people still do it. But one of the things that people were doing when the Bible was used the wrong way to promote segregation and to say that blacks were not equal to whites and things like that. One of the things that happened was it was almost like people were teaching their children and teaching the youth to have a certain mindset of people of other races, especially blacks. They wanted them to view themselves as superior to blacks. You know, the young white kids were supposed to view themselves as superior to the young blacks, and they were made to believe that they were too good to go to school with them. They shouldn't bring all the races together to be able to go to the same schools. They should be segregated and all that. And you know, they just wanted them to have that mindset, and they kept ingraining that mindset in them in hopes that when they got older, they would carry on those teachings and those traditions. That was the idea, to have them continue to pass that legacy, so to speak, on that type of prejudice mindset. But they wanted them to feel like it was justified, that it wasn't a prejudice. It's just how it was. It was just the right thing. And that's what a lot of them were being taught. And so what they were doing was they were raising people to be racist. Get it? Race. Get it? The name of this raise. You're raising someone to be racist. You see? So that's what it's about. And I want to start out by saying this, because I'm about to get into scripture so I can show you what verses that were used wrong and used incorrectly. What I wanted to say was this. I am what I like to call an equal opportunity offender. Let me explain what that means. Usually at different places that you can go to apply for a job, they will have, papers for you to sign, and sometimes they'll have a paper for you to sign, and they'll say something along the lines of, we here are an equal opportunity employer at this job. And it's just their way of saying, hey, we're not going to discriminate you against anything. We're not going to discriminate against your race, your gender, sexual orientation, your background, age, any of that. We're not going to find anything to just discriminate against you about. We're not going to pick based off of our own personal agendas or prejudices. We're going to give you a fair chance to apply for a job here at this place. We're going to give you as much of a fair chance as anybody else. That's basically what they're saying, and they're wanting you to see that, to read it, to acknowledge that's how they feel about you, that they're wanting to give you a fair chance. They're an equal opportunity employer. So what I mean when I say I'm an equal opportunity offender, what I'm saying is this. Listen, I don't like purposely trying to offend people. I don't like offending anybody. I don't like making anybody feel bad, putting anybody down, nothing like that. But if I am going to offend or rub somebody the wrong way, I would rather everybody kind of be rubbed the wrong way a little bit versus one group of people. Because when there's just one group of people rubbed the wrong way, a lot of times people view it as, oh, well, you're just taking the side of a group of people over here just because you have something in common with them. Like if you see men and women arguing or blacks and whites arguing about something, and let's say I hear a black person say something and they say something that seems a bit correct. And I say, hey, I kind of get what they're saying. There will be people that view it as, oh, well, you're just saying that because you're black. Well, I'm the type of person, I look at it as if you're right, you're right, you're wrong, you're wrong. And I'm not going to defend anybody just because I have something in common with them. I can agree with somebody over here, but also disagree with other things that they've said. There are things that have gone on in this Black Lives Matter movement that I think are positive, but there are some things that have been happening that I don't think is good at all. I just don't agree with some of it. Some of it I do, some of it I don't. And a lot of people feel like just because I'm black, I'm supposed to support the whole thing. No, not gonna do it. And I love my race. I love everybody. But hey, again, if I agree, I agree. And if I don't, I don't. I am an equal opportunity offender. So let me just start out by going ahead and saying something that might rub a little bit of everybody the wrong way, just to get the point across that I'm not being biased about any of this. Let me say this. It annoys me when a lot of times black people will use the N-word. You know how sometimes black people see each other and they go, ma, and then they say the N-word and shake their hand or give them some dap or whatever. And it's annoying to me because if a white person says the N-word and they don't even mean it as an insult, they mean it as a greeting the same way black people do with each other, we get offended and we say it's racist, even though we say it to each other. And that's why I avoid using that word. The only time I really use it is if I'm quoting somebody or I'm doing it to make a point. So I will say it here in this sermon just to make a point. But other than that, I really avoid using that word because, I don't like setting weird, unnecessary double standards like that. I don't really think that that's cool. So that right there is something that would rub some black people the wrong way. And I might get called a coon or an Uncle Tom or a sellout because I said that. Well, it wouldn't be the first time, so I don't care. But anyway, moving on. So now that I've said that might offend some black people, here's something that might offend some white people. And not all, but more specifically, those who may be prejudiced. And it's this. Here's the thing. When it comes to the whole feeling superior, being racist thing. The thing about that that's really kind of strange and kind of ironic to me is a lot of times when people, if a white person is racist, the thing about it is a lot of times they'll call black people the N-word, right? Well, what nigger is actually supposed to mean is ignorant. It's actually supposed to mean ignorant. That's the original definition. Ignorant means to not know any better. Now, the thing about being any type of prejudice like racist or sexist or ageist or whatever is this. A lot of times we want to just profile people right off the bat. We want to judge people based off of race, gender, this or that, and we want to act like we already know things about certain people and we already look down on them, right? And so you think you got a person all figured out. And a lot of times you'll do and say things that you really shouldn't do or say, but in your mind it's justified because you're so much better than that person, right? Well, whenever people start to learn things similar to what it is that I'm about to get ready to show you, and they find out that their prejudices are wrong and that they shouldn't be racist or any other type of prejudice, they will back away from that information. You can say all kinds of things that makes all kinds of sense, but they'll still deny it. They'll still turn away from it. They don't want to hear it, and especially if it comes out of the mouth of somebody who they're racist against. All right? And there's a reason for it. And what it is this. It's like I say all the time, pride and prejudice go hand in hand. There was even that movie called Pride and Prejudice, right? Pride and prejudice go hand in hand. When you're prejudiced, you get a pride about yourself. And a lot of times when you have this huge amount of I'm all that in a bag of chips and you get all arrogant and puffed up and you're really something and you're better than everybody else and you're on your high horse and all this other stuff, what ends up happening is when someone tries to show you might not, have it right. You shouldn't dog people out. You shouldn't think you're better than others and things like that. You run, but the reason why you don't want to hear it is because, listen, it pokes at your pride. It tears away at that superiority complex that you have, that made you have that boost, that made you have that high that you have off of your ego, that ego trip that you're on. So in order for you to stay on that high horse and feel extra good about yourself, you get into a state of denial. because that's what the pride does. The pride keeps you prejudiced. And what it causes you to do is be ignorant. You can't learn anything. You can't learn the truth. You are ignorant. And it's one thing to be ignorant or not know any better, but you choose to not know any better. You choose to be ignorant, which in a way is kind of worse than just simply being ignorant, because just a regular ignorant person can have the chance to actually learn something new and learn, the truth or logic or common sense. So that's what happens. Does what I'm saying make sense? So the reason why it's so ironic is because here you are, you're racist, and you're calling somebody the N-word, which really is supposed to mean ignorant. But if someone tries to educate you and show you that racist mindset that you have isn't right and you're doing people wrong because of it, and that maybe you're not all that in a bag of chips just because of how you were born, you choose to ignore that information, or you choose to stay ignorant, which would actually make you the N-word, even though you're calling somebody else that. See how that's kind of a little ironic there? Like, oh, I'm going to call you the N-word, but I'm really the ignorant one. So, just something for you to kind of think about there. Kind of like when people that are racist say go back to Africa, and they think that's just a great little insult. And it's crazy, because it's like, dude, I've never been to Africa. Shouldn't you just say go to Africa? Because when you say go back to Africa, you're implying that I've already been there before. I haven't been. My ancestors may have been, but I haven't, so I can't go back to a place I've never been. But anyway, that's what, see what I'm saying? That's what prejudice does. It kind of makes you ignorant, and you don't really think before you speak, and you're just so sure that everything you say is just so funny and brilliant, and then you say stuff that doesn't make sense, and someone tries to show it to you, but you don't want to hear it because you're so hoity-toity, and then you just remain ignorant, and it's just a never-ending cycle of ignorance. But anyway, let's look at this. So like I said, I've rubbed some of everybody the wrong way. See, I'm an equal opportunity offender, I think I did it right. I think I'm doing it right. What I want to look at is Genesis. If you want to go there to Genesis chapter 9, and I'm going to read from that. Genesis chapter 9, starting at verse 18, it says this: "And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward. And they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." So what's happened here is this. We know the story of Noah's Ark. And they get out of the ark. And the Bible lets us know you've got Noah, and then you've got his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Now what happens is Noah gets drunk. Ham sees this. He doesn't cover his father up, but he goes and tells his other brothers. So the other brothers, Shem and Japheth, they go and they cover their father Noah up. So after Noah wakes up from being in this drunken stupor that he was in, He's mad about the situation, mad about the fact that Ham didn't cover him up or whatever the deal was, and he's angry about it. But what he does is he curses Canaan, the son of Ham. He says, "Cursed be Canaan." And let me pause before I make the point. You know, the sad part about that is, for those that might not know, names in the Bible a lot of times have meanings, especially when you go back to the Hebrew names in the Old Testament that the names are translated from. And Canaan was not only the name of Ham's son, but it was the name of a land. So Canaan, as in the land, it translates back to lowland, a lowland. But the name itself, Canaan, when you see what it means humiliated. Canaan means humiliated. And then I was like, wow. He was cursed. Noah cursed him. He said, "Curse be Canaan." But his name already meant humiliated. So it sounds to me like he was cursed before he was cursed. Wow. You see what I did there? He was cursed before he was cursed. He was named humiliated. He was already done wrong right off the bat by how he was named by his father, and then his father's father is like cursed. You know what I mean? So he's like double cursed here. You know, the poor fella never had a chance. You know what I mean? It's terrible. Anyway, but moving on. So that's what happened. So as this plays out, he says curse to him, but then he also goes on to say that these people should be a servant unto his other sons. Okay, so he wants his other sons to be blessed, but not Ham and Canaan and their tribe of people, because they spread about the earth making other people. So here's what ends up playing out later. Preachers during the Civil War and you know, the Civil Rights Movement and all these things that were going on, what was happening was the North was against the South, northern states against the southern states here in the U.S. And it wasn't just a thing for the people of the world. Christians were going at it. Because you see, the northern Christians and the northern churches were having conflict with the southern Christians and the southern churches. The northern Christians and preachers were all about segregation being done away with and the slaves being freed, and you know, they were all about equality, and they were about things of that nature, fairness, equality, all that. However, southern churches, and we still have this problem sometimes today, let's face it, a lot of the southern preachers and the southern Christians were all about segregation. They looked at it as, we don't want blacks in our churches. They can do their own thing. We don't want to have anything to do with them because we're superior. Things of that nature. But what they did was they were using the Bible and these verses in particular incorrectly to justify this, because what they had the mindset of was this. And this is what the preachers were basically saying. The preachers were basically saying that, okay, church, check this out. What we see here in Genesis 9, we should use this story as a model for how we should associate with blacks. You see, we have it good here. We are blessed. And as you can see, the blacks don't seem to be very blessed compared to us. They are our servants. So there must be a reason for that. There must be a reason why our ancestors were able to take them from Africa and bring them here to serve us, because God allowed that to happen. So therefore, this story should be used as a model for us. So in other words, we are like Shem and Japheth. We are to be blessed, obviously, because we are here, right? And these people the blacks who are kind of like the Canaanites here in this story, they should continue to be our servants and be under us and be less equal, because there must have been something that Ham or their ancestors did wrong that would cause them to be cursed, which gave us the right to be over them, like Shem and Japheth in this story. Yeah, they actually did that. This has nothing to do with, things for us with civil rights and, the Civil War and all that. But they made these verses be about it. They used this as the model. They were just like, okay, we're over them, so obviously God must want this, and we're supposed to be better, and we're the pure race, and blah, 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 blah. This is what they used. These verses, this is what they used. Has nothing to do with it, but this is what they used. And the people in the churches clapped. They were all about it. And of course, not all. There were some who saw that it was ridiculous, but there were some that just went right along with it, because that's what pastor said. Better not say anything against it. Better not use common sense about this, lest everybody in the church hate me and not want me to be a part of this church anymore, not be a part of the body of Christ anymore. So I got to blend in, and that's how it was. You had a lot of people that were racist and very angry and very aggressive with it. You had some that weren't, but they were just timid and quiet about it and didn't really want to say anything because they felt outnumbered a lot of times. So that's what was used incorrectly. And so not only did they use that to try to justify segregation, not only just out in the world, but even in the church, but they also used these verses to be against ordination. So for example, if a black person felt like they were called to the ministry, they had the mindset of, we should not ordain them. So it didn't matter if God had a call on a person's life or not. It didn't matter what God really had to say. We had to go by the common social prejudice of that culture of that time. So we took something out of its biblical context to justify the prejudice. That's how it played out. But now I want you to go back with me to chapter 7. We're going to stay in Genesis, but go to chapter 7. And I want you to go to verse 14. Just going to read these couple of scriptures here. Well, no, let's back up to 13. Go to 13. It says this: in the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. So this is them going into the ark. Just a moment ago, I talked about them coming out, but let's look at this. Verse 14, it says, listen, they and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. So basically what it's saying is, 2 birds, 2 whatever else, 2 of every animal going in, 2 by 2, after its own kind. So what they were basically doing was they took these verses and they said this. They were like, okay, as you can clearly see, when they went in the ark, it was 2 birds together over here, and 2 pigs together over here, and 2 of this animal and 2 of that animal. So God must be all about separation and segregation. And he wants everybody to be with their own kind. So that must mean that blacks should stay over here with blacks, and whites should stay over here with whites, and there should be no mingling of the 2 at all. Now, stop and think about this with me for a second. If it's the birds with the birds and the pigs with the pigs and so on and so forth, shouldn't it be humans with the humans? You see what I'm saying? Instead of skin color with skin color, because then you could also be like, well, hair color with hair color and eye color with eye color and, you know, so on and so forth. But it just seems to me like it'd be human with human. I mean, I don't know. Right? I mean, I'm just trying to use a little bit of common sense here. But they use this as their way of saying that black should be over there, white should be over here. And of course, since we're the blessed ones, us whites, if we have to choose between something and something else, we should choose the better of the two and then let the blacks have the worst of the two, of whatever it is that we're going to choose from. If there's land for us to have and we have to separate it, we should get the best land and they should get what we don't want. See what I'm saying? That was the complex that they had, but they were using verses and using them. It'd be different if they used it in a positive way, but they used them in a very evil, negative way by taking them out of their particular biblical context. And that's what ruined it for a lot of them, for a lot of things. But when it came to those verses, they used it to be anti-interracial relationships, anti-interracial marriage. They were against biracial children. And they had the mindset of, well, not only should we come together and look at ourselves as equal, but we don't need to date outside of our race. We don't need to marry people of other races. That's terrible. We don't need to breed with them. Yeah, breed like we're animals. You know what I mean? We don't need to breed with them. And we're the pure race. And so therefore, we should not intermingle and marry and breed and have sex with people of the opposite race because it taints our race. It causes our race to not be pure. We will be defiled if you do that. The whole race will start to become defiled. And what they were trying to argue was things like this. You ready? Pay close attention. This should sound a little familiar. They tried to say, if we accept this, if we start to accept interracial dating and interracial marriages, and we accept biracial children that are mixed with different races, if we start to accept and embrace this, it'll take over. In other words, all of our young white youth, they will all run to people of other races and marry them and have children with them. And then after some years, after a couple of generations or so, our white race will be completely wiped out. It'll be done away with because we will be mixed with so many other people that the race just won't be pure anymore. And then we won't be blessed by God. Yep. Now, does that not sound a little familiar to you? Let's be honest. Is that not what a lot of times people say about gays? Come on, isn't that what a lot of today's preachers say about homosexuality? Well, if we stop kicking them out of the churches and we start telling the truth about this and we start embracing our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters and things like that, what will happen is that all of our young folks, our young straight folks, will all of a sudden, they'll want to turn gay and they'll all get with somebody of the same gender and you know what I mean? And they'll all want to try to get married and they'll all want gay marriage and they'll all marry somebody of the same gender. And then after a couple of generations or so, we'll all die out. There won't be any of us left because there was no more birth by any straight people. Because all the straight people decided to turn gay, all because we accepted people for who they were. Right? Does that not sound like the same thing? Oh, well, you better not love on these people because all of our young white youth are going to date outside of their race. Oh, you better not be cool with gays, because if that happens, all the young straight people will suddenly turn gay just out of nowhere. And seriously? But see how it's like the same thing? It's a pattern, guys. It's a pattern. It's a vicious cycle. It's a pattern of saying things that are just wacky and doesn't make any sense. You have a small amount of people that are in the LGBT category compared to the majority that are straight, and it always has been that way. But somehow, you know, if we give the gays the thumbs up, all of a sudden everybody's going to want to be gay. What? Anyway, I don't get that, but whatever. Okay. Anyway, that's oh my goodness. Now what I want to do is go with you guys to John. Let's go to John. John chapter 10. We're going to start at verse 11, and we're going to see something. And this is going to seem very off subject, very off topic, but just bear with me, because I'm going to use a book here in a moment that I recently bought, because it's something that I learned a little bit out of in the past, and I want to use some things that I learned to really help me get some points across in this sermon, and I think it's going to be awesome. But let's look at this. John chapter 10, starting at verse 11, let's see what Jesus says about being the good shepherd, being a good leader over a flock of people. Let's look at this. It says this: I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. But he that is a hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father. Capital F, talking about Father God. So here we have Jesus. He's saying that he's the good shepherd. He watches over the flock. He tends the flock. He takes care of the flock. He's not there to fleece the flock. He's there to take care of them and watch them and guide them in the right direction. He loves them. And he's willing to lay down his life for his own flock. And we as Christians, we are his people. He's willing to put it on the line for us. Matter of fact, he did. Right? So he was willing to put everything on the line for us. He was willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice. That's going to be a key word here soon. Sacrifice for us. But he goes on to say a hireling. He'll run off. He'll see a wolf. He'll run off. The wolf will go after the sheep and hurt them and run them off and do all kinds of wacky stuff. Why? Because, and I love how he says that a hireling would do that because he's a hireling. In other words, he's just there because he's paid to do it. But he doesn't really care. Not the way he might act like he does or the way he claims he does. He might make it seem like he does, but it'll be a show. It'll be an act. In other words, it's more than just being a hireling. It's more than just pretending you care. It's about being willing to lay your life down, to put it on the line for your flock, for your people, those that you want to be a leader over. Yeah, the people that are under you, yeah, you want their respect. That's another key word that's coming up, other than what I just said, also respect. Yeah, you want respect from the people that you're over. Yeah, you want them to defend you at times because you're their leader. But it can't just be all about everybody defending you, but you never defending them, and you never standing up for them, and you never being willing to take the bullet for them. But you always want them to take the bullet, and you always want them to throw themselves under the bus for you. But when things get heated, you want to turn around and run and hide and peek around and play peekaboo and make sure everybody else is covering your behind. And then if they get tired of it and speak out, all of a sudden they're the bad guys. So you don't want to move over and let somebody else be over the flock that will really care for them, but you don't want to do right either. And then that's where the issues come in. So Jesus is saying, I'm the good shepherd. I'm not just some hireling. I'm not just anybody. I am the good shepherd. I'm the good leader. I'm the one that actually cares. Because I was sent by God to do this job, and I want to do it right. You might be wondering why I shared that. Let me take a sip of water just for a second. I want to share some things with you here in just a second. I want to share some things with you from this book. The name of this book is The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, written by John C. Maxwell. And in this book, this guy is basically taking 21 different significant topics that pertain to leadership. And in every topic, he uses people from throughout history who have fit the categories of these specific topics the best. And he uses all these examples to show what makes a good leader. And so one of the chapters is going to be on the law of respect. Remember, I said there was going to be a key word, respect. But the other topic, the other chapter, is on sacrifice, the law of sacrifice, the things that make a good leader. And I know this all kind of seems, like I said, off topic, but it's not. Bear with me. I want to read this, and he's describing a woman who is historical. You've probably heard about her in school. He doesn't say the woman's name first. He just describes her. And I want to see if you can figure it out before I stop at the part where it actually gives her name. Listen to this. It says this. If you had seen her, your first reaction might not have been respect. She wasn't a very impressive looking woman, just a little over 5 feet tall. In her late 30s, with dark brown weathered skin, she couldn't read or write. The clothes she wore were coarse and worn. When she smiled, she revealed that her top 2 front teeth were missing. She lived alone. The story was that she had abandoned her husband when she was 29. She gave him no warning. One day he woke up and she was gone. She talked to him only once after that, years later, and she never mentioned his name again afterward. Her employment was erratic. Most of the time she took domestic jobs in small hotels, scrubbing floors, making up rooms, and cooking. But just about every spring and fall she would disappear from her place of employment, come back broke, and work again to scrape together what little money she could. When she was present on the job, she worked hard and seemed physically tough, but she also was known to suddenly fall asleep, sometimes in the middle of a conversation. She attributed her affliction to a blow to the head she had taken during a teenage fight. Who would respect a woman like that? The answer is the more than 300 slaves who followed her to freedom out of the South. They recognized and respected her leadership. So did just about every abolitionist in New England. The year was 1857. Anybody know who this woman was? It says the woman's name was Harriet Tubman. If you know Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Rosa Parks or any of those people that were a big deal when getting the slaves free or going after civil rights and the Million Man March or anything to do with any of that type of stuff, you've heard the name Harriet Tubman. Her name is synonymous with something that was called the Underground Railroad. She was the one that was helping slaves just go and get free, just sneaking them out. That was her, Harriet Tubman. We know the name. Let's look at this. She earned respect. Let's look at this. While she was only in her 30s, Harriet Tubman came to be called Moses because of her ability to go into the land of captivity and bring so many of her people out of slavery's bondage. They called her Moses. Did you hear that? And I know many of you know Moses. If you listen to me, if you've listened to my sermons in the past, I'm sure you know Moses because I've ranted and raved about him quite a bit. Moses, and we can read some things about him in Exodus. Moses was a fellow who God used to set his people free because his people, the Israelites, were in slavery and bondage to Pharaoh and the Egyptians. So he used Moses to lead them out. So they began to call Harriet Tubman Moses. Oh man, this is fun right here. Listen to this. Tubman started life as a slave. She was born in 1820 and grew up in the farmland of Maryland. When she was 13, she received the blow to her head that troubled her all her life. She was in a store, and a white overseer demanded her assistance so that he could beat an escaping slave. When she refused and blocked the overseer's way, the man threw a 2-pound weight that hit Tubman in the head. She nearly died, and her recovery took months. She put her life on the line to save her own, even though she knew she would pay for it or could pay for it. She was willing to put her life on the line. And the funny thing is, that's kind of like what Moses did. Moses was originally born Hebrew, but he was given up and he was, I guess you could say, adopted, if you will, by this Egyptian woman, the Egyptians. And so he grew up Egyptian and he learned their ways and he wore their clothes and he was able to blend in. But then one day, he saw a Hebrew and an Egyptian get into a fight, and he decided to take the side of the Hebrew and help him. Not only was he putting himself in danger just by helping the Hebrew, it would be bad for him to do that with him openly being a Hebrew already. But the fact that he had been living as an Egyptian, the fact that he was living the good life, if you will, that meant that he was going to lose even more by standing up for the Hebrew. But he still did it. And it was after that that God got a hold of him to use him to lead them out of slavery. Let's look. Or let's listen for you guys. Let's see here. At age 24, she married John Tubman, a free black man. But when she talked to him about escaping to freedom in the North, he wouldn't hear of it. He said that if she tried to leave, he'd turn her in. When she resolved to take her chances and go north in 1849, she did so alone, without a word to him. Her first biographer, Sarah Bradford, said that Tubman told her, "I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of two things I had a right to do, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I could have the other. For no man should take me alive. I should fight for my liberty as my strength lasted. And when the time came for me to go, the Lord would let them take me. Oh man, this is where it gets fun. Harriet Tubman was quoted and she was explaining, saying, listen, what it all comes down to is this. I have the right to liberty, and I have the right to choose between liberty and death. Either I'm going to have one or I'm going to have the other. If I die doing what I'm about to do, so be it. But in the meantime, I have liberty. I have freedom. I'm free and I can help others get free. Because this is what it's about. Well, what type of life is this, living in slavery? I'd rather be free and risk losing it all or even dying than to just live like this, because this is really no way to live. But she says that she won't be able to die unless the Lord allows this to happen, allows them to take her. She's depending on God to get her through this. She's saying, I'll do this as long as my strength lasts. But the funny thing about it, she's saying that it's in God's hands. So she's really acknowledging that her strength comes from the Lord, which is funny because I just not too long ago got done doing a sermon series on strength, having strength in the Lord. Because, you know, there's that verse in the Bible, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. People quote it all the time, but we never really find strength in God. We just find strength from other people. Right? Remember me talking about that? So here she's saying, you know, listen, it's all in God's hands. I'm going to go with all the strength that I've got. And when God sees fit for it to be over, it'll be over. But in the meantime, I'm going to do what it is that I believe he's going to want me to do. And the funny thing about that is that's what Jesus comes to do. He comes to give us life and life more abundantly. Not just some raggedy life to live. He wants us to really have life. And not only does he want us to have life more abundantly, he also wants to have us be free, but not just any type of freedom. He wants to be free indeed. A freedom that's out of sin and out of bondage. He wants us free. So she was serious. She was a force to be reckoned with. You would think this little woman wouldn't amount to anything just by looking at her. But see, here's the thing, and this is one of the things I love about God. This is what I love about our God. Our God, see, he doesn't care about the things that many of us care about in this world and in this life in this world, in these sin suits, as I call our flesh suits, our sin suits. He looks past the outer. He looks past the exterior, and he's looking within. He doesn't look on the outside of man. He looks on the inside. That's what he was saying before he had somebody go and anoint David. Remember that? I'm not looking on the outward appearance. I'm looking at the heart, because man looks at the outward appearance. Remember when he said that? This is what God is concerned about. He's concerned about what's going on in your heart. Where do your motives lie? What is your agenda? Are you about my business? Are you going to do what my son Jesus said when he said, I'm about the Father's business? Or are you going to be about your own? But if you would be about my business and do what I've called you to do, I want to give you that life more abundantly, and I want to make you free indeed. And that's what I'm believing that he did for Harriet Tubman. But let's look at this. Tubman made her way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, via the Underground Railroad, a secret network of free blacks, white abolitionists, and Quakers who helped escaping slaves on the run. Though free herself, she vowed to return to Maryland and bring her family out. In 1850, she made her first return trip as an Underground Railroad conductor, someone who retrieved and guided out slaves with the assistance of sympathizers along the way. Each summer and winter, Tubman worked as a domestic, scraping together the funds she needed to make return trips to the South. And every spring and fall, she risked her life by going south and returning with more people. She was fearless, and her leadership was unshakable. Hers was extremely dangerous work. And when people in her charge wavered or had second thoughts, she was strong as steel. Tubman knew escaped slaves who returned would be beaten and tortured until they gave information about those who had helped them. So she never allowed any people she was guiding to give up. Dead folks tell no tales, she would tell a faint-hearted slave as she put a loaded pistol to his head. You go on or die. Between 1850 and 1860, Harriet Tubman guided out more than 300 people, including many of her family members. She made 19 trips in all and was very proud of the fact that she never once lost a single person under her care. Listen to this. Quote, I never ran my train off the track, she said. I never lost a passenger. I never ran the train off the track, and I never lost a passenger. She sounds to me like, I don't know, the good shepherd. She sounds like a good shepherd. She sounds like a good leader. Listen, she didn't want to lose her people. She wanted to save her people, and as she guided them out, she didn't lose them. She didn't let them get off track, nor did she purposely run the train off the rails. She didn't detour. She didn't go the wrong way on purpose. She took the path she knew that they were going to need to take to get free. She didn't have doubts and second thoughts. She wasn't about letting the spirit of fear creep in, because the word lets us know that God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. She didn't purposely throw them off track. She stayed the course, and she encouraged them to stay the course, because she knew if they went back, it was going to be bad for them and for everybody else she got free. It was going to be bad for everybody. She was like, no, let's keep going. Let's look at this. At the time, Southern whites put a $12,000 price on her head, a fortune. But by the start of the Civil War, she had brought more people out of slavery than any other American in history, black or white, male or female. She had a price over her head. There was a bounty out for her, $12,000, which was really something at the time. To have her, for somebody to capture her, they were out for her. They wanted her to stop this. They didn't want her helping folks get free. People wanted her killed. They wanted her stopped. They were willing to pay money for her. You would think if somebody had money over their head like that, if they felt threatened like that, if their life was just flashing before their eyes, as we say, they'd probably stop. But instead, she just kept right on going. And she did so much. She did more than a lot of people, regardless of race or gender. Guys, listen to me. The God that we serve is not here to discriminate. He's an equal opportunity employer. He is an equal opportunity employer. I'll be an equal opportunity offender. We can just keep right on tracking. Tubman's reputation and influence commanded respect, and not just among slaves who dreamed of gaining their freedom. Influential Northerners of both races sought her out. She spoke at rallies in homes throughout Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Boston, Massachusetts, St. Catharines, Canada. Sought her out, such as Senator William Seward, who later became Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State, and outspoken abolitionist and former slave Frederick Douglass. There's another popular name. Tubman's advice and leadership were also requested by John Brown, the famed revolutionary abolitionist. Brown, let me pause there and say this. For those of you that don't know who John Brown is, he was a white guy that was all about equality. And at that time, you could imagine what people of his very own race probably thought of him. They probably called him all kinds of stuff. But he didn't care about being called names or being talked down about or talked down to. They probably were calling him a traitor of the race and all kinds of stuff. But that's not what his concern was. He knew right from wrong. He wasn't concerned about being outnumbered or feeling left behind by his own people. But this is what I love. It says, Brown always referred to the former slave as General Tubman. The thing that I love about that is when you think of general, you think of a ranking, like in the military. This woman wasn't in the military, but because of the respect level she had, they were calling her General Tubman. Let me stop on that just for a second. See, here's the thing. A lot of times we get caught up in positions and promotions and being high up on the ladder, so to speak. And so we want fancy titles because of it. We want prestige. We want the hand claps and the high fives and the thumbs up. But here you have somebody that was given a title, a position, and it wasn't because she wanted it or asked for it. It was because she had such a high level of respect that people were just throwing titles at her. Oh, wow. I could stay on that for a while, but I'm going to keep going. It says this, and he was quoted as saying, she was a better officer than most of whom he had seen and could command an army as successfully as she had led her small parties of fugitives. That is the essence of the law of respect. Harriet Tubman would appear to be an unlikely candidate for leadership because the deck was certainly stacked against her. She was uneducated. She began life as a slave. She lived in a culture that didn't respect African Americans, and she labored in a country where women didn't have the right to vote yet. Despite her circumstances, she became an incredible leader. The reason is simple. People naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. Everyone who came in contact with her recognized her strong leadership ability and felt compelled to follow her. That's how the law of respect works. A lot of times people want to demand respect and force respect down people's throats. But there's something about standing out above the crowd and not trying to blend in that makes all the difference. This right here said it best. That last paragraph said it best. She was an unlikely candidate to be anybody. But look at what she did. All because she felt like the Lord was leading her to do it. So really, you could say, look what the Lord did. Look what the Lord has done. Okay. I'm going to keep going. Let's move on here. Let's listen to this. Check this out. It says this. Why does an individual step forward to lead other people? For every person, the answer is different. A few do it to survive. Some do it to make money. Many desire to build a business or organization. Others do it because they want to change the world. That was the reason for Martin Luther King Jr. King's leadership ability began to emerge when he was in college. He had always been a good student. In high school, he skipped the 9th grade, and when he took a college entrance exam as a junior, his scores were high enough that he decided to skip his senior year and enroll in Morehouse College in Atlanta. At age 18, he received his ministerial license. At 19, he was ordained and received his bachelor's degree in sociology. King continued his education at Crozer Seminary in Pennsylvania. While he was there, two significant things happened. He heard a message about the life and teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, which forever marked him and put in motion his serious study of the Indian leader. He also emerged as a leader among his peers and was elected president of the senior class. From there, he studied for his PhD at Boston University. It was also during this time that he married Coretta Scott. King accepted his first pastorate in Montgomery, Alabama at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in 1954 and settled into family life when his first child was born the next year in November. But that peace didn't last long. Less than a month later, Rosa Parks, we know that person, sitting at the back of the bus, not going to do it. Rosa Parks refused to relinquish her seat on a bus to a white passenger and was arrested. Local African American leaders arranged a one-day boycott of the transit system to protest her arrest and the city's segregation policy. When it was successful, they decided to create the Montgomery Improvement Association, or the MIA, to continue the boycott. Already recognized as a leader in the community, King was unanimously elected president of the newly formed organization. King was a leader, and you can tell by what he just read, he was passionate about God. That's right. He was all about the Lord, and people looked up to him. He was a leader. He had something in him. But we're going to soon see that there was more to him than just what meet the eye. There was more to him than just something as just, well, there's something about him. He has an it factor. Because what's going to happen is his leadership, his level of leadership is going to go up higher and higher. People are going to think more and more and more of him, but there's a reason for it. Not just because he was the same color as some of the people he was helping. There is going to be another reason why. Let's see what it is. Let's keep reading. Check this out. For the next year, King led African American community leaders in a boycott with the goal of changing the system. The MIA negotiated with city leaders and demanded courteous treatment of African Americans by bus operators, first come, first served seating for all bus riders. In other words, fairness and equality, and employment of African American bus drivers. Equal opportunity employment, something else I just talked about. While the boycott was on, community leaders organized carpools, raised funds to support the boycott financially, rallied and mobilized the community with sermons. Oh man, they were preaching. He was preaching it up. And coordinated legal challenges with the NAACP. Finally, in November 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the laws allowing segregated seating on buses. King and the other leaders were successful. Their world was beginning to change. The Montgomery bus boycott was a major step in the American civil rights movement, and it's easy to see what was gained as a result of it. But King also began paying a personal cost for it. He was paying a heavy price for what he was doing. He caught a lot of hell for what he was doing. And it's funny because it reminds me of something that a lot of preachers say all the time. They say that when the anointing comes, for an anointing, you pay a price, but the more anointed you become, you have to continue to pay higher prices. And it's not about money. It's about your life. The higher you go with God, the deeper you go with God. A price has to be paid. It's your life. It's more of God and less of you. It's more of His Spirit and less of your flesh. We see He's paying a price for all the things that He's doing. Let's look at this. It says, soon after the boycott began, King was arrested for a minor traffic violation. A bomb was thrown onto his porch, and he was indicted on a charge of being party to a conspiracy to hinder and prevent the operation of business without just or legal cause. King was emerged as a leader, but he was paying a price for it. Each time King climbed higher and moved forward in leadership for the cause of civil rights, the greater the price he paid. His wife, Coretta Scott King, remarked in My Life with Martin Luther King Jr., day and night our phone would ring and someone would pour out a sting of obscene epithets. Frequently the calls ended with a threat to kill us if we didn't get out of town. But in spite of all the danger, the chaos of our private lives, I felt inspired, almost elated. So his wife is quoted as saying in this book, or whatever this is, that's called My Life with Martin Luther King Jr. They got it in italics, whatever this is, a book or documentary or whatever. But she was quoted as saying that day in and day out, they'd get phone calls of people threatening them and saying very obscene things that they shouldn't be saying. But even though they were being threatened, even though it seemed like the enemy was coming in and pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to stop progress or slow down progress or bring in that spirit of fear, it said they were inspired and elated. Instead of being afraid, they were excited about it. It was like they just got a boost of energy. It was just like they were encouraged to just keep fighting the good fight. King did some great things as a leader. He met with presidents. He delivered rousing speeches that are considered some of the most outstanding examples of oration in American history. He led 250,000 people in a peaceful march on Washington, D.C. He received the Nobel Peace Prize, and he did create change in this country. Check this out. But the law of sacrifice, that's that other key word. The law of sacrifice demands that the greater the leader, the more he must give up. Oh boy, that's what it is right there. He was paying a price, and what he was doing was he was having to sacrifice. That's the key word. As a leader, sometimes you have to sacrifice. You have to give up things, and he was willing to sacrifice his life, put his life on the line. He had to give up some time doing some things he probably wanted to do some things he probably didn't feel like doing at the moment. He went through some things for a greater cause, not just for himself, but others, even for people who probably weren't appreciative of it, because for those who don't know, listen, not all black people were excited about what he was trying to do. Seriously. My grandmother, I remember her telling the story of her mother, or my great-grandmother. She was explaining how when she was a kid, her mother didn't like Dr. Martin Luther King. Didn't like him. Called him the N-word and said that, listen, that what he was doing was causing trouble and that he should just leave well enough alone. Why? Well, I think the answer is obvious. She had a spirit of fear. She looked at it as, okay, they're going to make things worse or he's going to make things worse for everybody. He's just stirring people up. He's just making people mad. It's pointless. He's not going to get his way. He's not going to be able to make a change. So he should just sit down somewhere because nobody thinks much of him. And the ones that do, they're just as stupid as he is. He's wasting time. He's just going to make it hard for us. But look at what he did. Or, as I said before, look what the Lord has done, because he's used some people to stand up for what was right, to make a difference, to help other people as a whole progress. Let's keep going. During that same period, King was arrested many times and jailed on many occasions. He was stoned. Doesn't that sound like Old Testament right there, being stoned? He was stoned, stabbed, and physically attacked. His house was bombed. Yet his vision and his influence continue to increase. He had a vision, which is funny because it sounds like, I have a dream. Remember that famous speech that he did, I have a dream? And dreams and visions go hand in hand in the Bible. Oh my goodness. This is making me excited. Ultimately, he sacrificed everything he had, but what he gave up, he parted with willingly. In his last speech, delivered the night before he was assassinated in Memphis, he said, listen to what he said. This is good. This got me amped up when I read it. Listen to this. I don't know what will happen to me now. We've got some difficult days ahead of us. But it doesn't matter to me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I won't mind. Like anybody else, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. Oh my goodness. And listen to this. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. And I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. I'm sorry, but if that doesn't get you excited or get you amped up, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what will. I don't care what color you are. Listen, if you're a Christian, if you love God, that's something that should get you amped up. Sorry. If it doesn't, I just don't know what to tell you. He says, listen, my concern is the will of God. I'm not concerned about, listen, anything of my personal will or agenda or anybody else's. I don't care that people are trying to come up against me. I don't care that people are trying to ruin my reputation, trying to tarnish my name, trying to lie on me, trying to twist things and twist things out of proportion and make me seem like the bad guy as I continue to try to do good and just try to help folks out. I'm doing the will of God. I'm doing what it is that I know I was called to do. It's not something to benefit me. It's going to benefit others, though. And he's saying, listen, I've seen the promised land. I know we're getting somewhere, but I know hell's coming against me. And he's saying, listen, I don't know what's to come. It's almost like he's hinting that he knows something is coming. He might not know what it is, but he knows something is coming. And he knows there's a chance that he might not even get to make it to the promised land with him to see it with his own eyes. But he's saying, listen, we're going to get there together as a whole. I might not get to go there physically in this body, but I'm still going to be there with you. That presence of me will be with you as you guys get to go in, even if my body doesn't get to go with you. Carry this on. Carry on what I've said. Carry on this legacy into this promised land because we're going to get there. And the funny thing about it is that also makes me think of Moses because Moses got so close and he didn't even get to go in with the rest of them when they were going to their promised land. He didn't even get to make it, but he still kept going and going and going and going. Guys, listen. We got to be about the will of God. Anytime something big happens, like this, like the things that I've read, where people are serious, they're willing to be a good shepherd, they're willing to go all the way. Not only do they have such a passion for God, but a passion for God's people and God's kingdom and progression for God's people. They're so serious, they're so dedicated, they even get to the point where they say, you know what? Even if I don't make it to see the outcome, even if I don't get to the goal, so to speak, I'm willing to do all it takes for you to make sure you get to see it, to make sure you get there. I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to put it all on the line. And listen, I'm not doing this so I can hold something over your head later, so I can make you feel like you owe me, like you're indebted to me, forever indebted to me, so you got to stay attached with me at the hip the rest of your life because I did something nice for you. I'm doing this from the heart because I have a heart that's after God's own heart, like David when he had the heart after God's own heart. That's what God's looking for, folks. It says this, the next day he paid the ultimate price of sacrifice King's impact was profound. He influenced millions of people to peacefully stand up against a system and society that fought to exclude them. The United States has changed for the better because of his leadership. There is a common misrepresentation among people who aren't leaders that leadership is all about the position, the perks, and power that come from rising in an organization. Many people today want to climb up the corporate ladder because they believe that freedom, power, and wealth are the prizes waiting at the top. The life of a leader can look glamorous to people on the outside, but the reality is that leadership requires sacrifice. A leader must give up to go up. Oh man, this is good. In recent years, we've observed more than our share of leaders who used and abused their organizations for their personal benefit, and the resulting corporate scandals that came because of their greed and selfishness. The heart of good leadership is sacrifice. And he hit the nail on the head there, and I want to elaborate on it for just a minute. One of the problems with many folks in leadership today, and it's always been this way, but we see it more and more as time goes by, is this. People get their leadership a lot of times. They have their own hidden agendas, their own fleshly desires in mind. And a lot of times they get this leadership and they do people wrong. They dog people out. They throw people under the bus. They'll step all over people just to try to get to the top of the ladder by doing it their way, by doing it man's way, by doing it the world's way. They're not concerned about doing any of it God's way. They're not concerned about right and wrong. In fact, the higher up they go, the less they care about what's right. The more they're willing to shed their morals, shedding it like they're a snake shedding skin, just shedding it all off. They start being less concerned about the little man at the bottom. And there's so much deceit that creeps in. And they make other people have to go through hell just for their laughs, just to get their kicks. Sometimes people come in, listen, with that corrupt mindset going up, but here's a sad thing. Sometimes people start out having good things in mind, having good intentions, but it's like my buddy Alexa said one time, honey, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right? Come on. So you have somebody that'll start out with good intentions, with truthful, rightful intentions. They may even have God in mind. But what happens is they start looking around instead of staying focused on Jesus. They start looking around at acceptance and appreciation from everybody, and they start wanting everybody to like them and look up to them. They want everybody to be on board with them. And what happens is they get an ego. They start having a spirit of jealousy towards other people that have things that they want, even though they rightfully have what they have. And so all these negative things and thoughts and feelings enter in. And what happens is they trade in the will of God for their own personal will or somebody else's. So they become corrupt. Their heart becomes corrupt. They get that hard, callous, stony heart, and they just start stepping all over people, walking all over people, pushing people out of the way, pushing folks in front of the bus if they're not throwing them underneath it, pushing them in front of the train, so to speak, taking people off the tracks, putting them on detours when they were supposed to be on the tracks, doing everything that they can to go up higher and higher. And all that it is a bunch of mess, a bunch of junk. That empire mentality, as I've explained it once before, where it's all in their head. They got it all planned out. But the problem is, when they finally wake up, when they finally realize this is going to fall apart, when they finally realize maybe it's not going to work out how I wanted it to, and they start to consider or reconsider God's way again, what ends up happening is they start realizing, okay, if I do submit to God, I'm going to have to humble myself. I might have to look some folks in the eye and apologize. I might have to say I'm sorry. I might have to start admitting to wrong things that I've done, and I don't want to do that because it'll ruin my reputation. So they keep going. They keep turning away from God. They just keep going and going and going, trying to go up the ladder, but in the process, they're trying to hide from God. As if you can actually do that. It's like they forget that the God we serve is an all-knowing, all-seeing God. It's just like all the stuff they know about God just goes right out the window, like they didn't even know it. They can quote scripture, but they don't know God in their hearts anymore. Their heart is far from God. They speak good things. They speak things of God, but their heart is far from Him. And then the empire falls, the empire crumbles, and they see it. They know the fall's coming. They know what's coming, but they would rather they would rather watch everything fall apart and try to hold on to it than to back up, let go, and let God. They would rather see things get screwed up for other people that trusted in them, that backed them up, but that they refuse to back up themselves. They would rather see things get screwed up and go to hell for everybody else than they will be willing to risk all of what they have. They'll throw everybody else under the bus, watch everybody else take the fall, instead of taking the fall for themselves, instead of taking responsibility for the actions that they've done, and for all the plotting and scheming that they've done behind the scenes. They would rather everybody else pay a price than for them to have to pay it themselves, because they feel too good to pay for it, or because they care about what everybody else has to think or say, because they don't want to be turned away from their own kind, so to speak. These are the things that happen, but I'm here to tell you, respect, true respect, not the forced respect where you feel like you have to bully people and cuss folks out to get respect, but the real true respect that is earned. That type of respect and being willing to sacrifice, not trying to force everybody else to sacrifice for you all the time while you never sacrifice anything back. Not that. Not that thing where you use and abuse people and then turn around and try to make them feel like they should just be happy and thankful that you gave them a chance. Not that. But when you have the true sacrifice in your heart, when you're willing to be a good shepherd, so to speak, that right there is when God can do the most with you. Guys, I'm going to take us to one more scripture, and then I'm going to pray us out of here. I don't want to keep this going for too long. Let's see here. Go to Jeremiah. Book of Jeremiah. We're going to be at, let's see here, chapter 29. We're going to be at verse 10. It says this, "For thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word toward you, in causing you to return to this place. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Then shall ye call upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. And ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart. And I will be found of you, saith the Lord. And I will turn away your captivity, and I will gather you from all the nations and from all the places whither I have driven you, saith the Lord. And I will bring you again into the place whence I have caused you to be carried away." God's talking to some people that were carried away into Babylon. He's talking about how they need to seek him, search him, reach out to him, cry out to him, pray to him, and how he wants to help them, how he wants to get them out of the hell, out of the turmoil that they're in, and how he really wants to be good to them, but they just got to simply submit to him and want to accept him as their God. And I just wanted to read that to say this. You know, a lot of times people, especially non-believers, when they talk about our God, the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when they talk about him, they will try to make him out to be a racist. And so they believe that, well, if you're black or any other race besides white here in America, why in the world would you want to believe the God of the Bible? Why would you want to accept the Bible? Well, here's what you have to understand. God chose a people, and he chose those people not because, he liked their skin color, but he decided to pick a people to be a representation to other people and to other nations what he was looking for. And what I mean is this: if you notice, a lot of times in other countries, in different places, depending on the culture, a lot of times that will determine the predominant religion in that place. Right? If you're watching TV and they show you things in other countries, and a lot of times there will be a certain God, so to speak, that's the widely worshiped God in that area. You understand what I'm saying? Well, what happened was our God, the one true God, of course, he was the God of all. But what ended up happening was people wanted their way, and so then they started creating gods or false gods, little g's, because in the Bible, little g's, false gods. Our God is capital G. So what happened was, depending on where you were, what nation you were in, what culture you were in, it determined a lot of times what the popular God was. And a lot of times people just worshiped and praised the God that was popular in that area. So God chose some people and showed the people his ways and said, okay, these are the rules and regulations you need to go by, and you need to set an example for all the other nations. And he was wanting everybody to submit to him, resubmit to him. Listen, it wasn't a race thing. It's not, well, I don't like you because you're of this color or this background or this tribe or this creed. That's just how it was. It was a nation thing. It was a culture thing that determined what or who you were worshiping. So he was using a group of people to listen. Not that he wanted everybody to like a certain race more. It was just their ways of living. He told them the ways that he wanted them to live, and he wanted everybody else to follow suit. He was just using a group of people to set an example for everybody else. That's it. Okay, so God is not just some racist bigot that wants everybody else to be one too. So when he was going on and on in the Bible about people being separate from others because of, nationality or whatever else, it wasn't a race issue. It was because of how they lived and how they were worshiping other gods other than him, the one true God. That's it. That's all it was about. It's really that simple. We make it hard. Okay, so that's what that was about. And we see here some people that were allowed to go into captivity. God's wanting to get them out. He's saying, listen, I just want you to love me. I want you to pray to me now. I want you to turn back to me. You've turned away from me, but now you need to turn back to me. And as long as you are after my heart, as long as you follow my will and my way, I'm going to lead you out. And then if you keep reading, you go on to see that those that continue to be against God, those are the people that he will continue to have a problem with. It's not a issue of race or skin color. Okay, so there's that. You must understand that. So one of the things that I need you to get out of all of what I've said is this. I know a lot of people are big on not wanting God in schools. Well, let me say this, and I'm not trying to force anything down anybody's throat, but here's something for you to consider so I can wrap this up. Listen to me very carefully. There are going to be people who will listen to this, and for the first time, they'll start to learn that people like Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King did what they did because they felt led by God to do it. They felt led to get their people free. Because they've heard from people, well, God must be racist. Or, oh, you're black, you should not want to have anything to do with the Bible because it was used against you and it was used to keep you in bondage. Even though people did that, people made that mistake. We shouldn't be mad at God for what people are doing. And so they get all that in their minds, But they don't know that the same God that they're being taught to dislike or not believe in is the same one that was helping and encouraging and uplifting people to get free. They're not being told that. They're not getting that part of the story. And the reason why they're not getting that part of the story is because we want God out of school. So if we want God out of schools, it makes it hard for teachers to go into detail and talk more and more about how people who made a huge impact in the civil rights movement, in the black communities, felt led by God, the God of the Bible, to do so. We're not getting that. Too many people are not getting that. They're not getting that reality. So with that said, it's like the saying goes, it starts at home. Guys, listen, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, whatever you are. Kind of like how we say, oh, well, black history is all history. Well, the Bible is history too, and it's important for us, no matter what color you are, to share that. Share it not only at church, but even at home. Get your kids into reading the word, or you read to them and explain things to them or whatever, but help them. Help them understand that they serve a God that does love them, that they don't serve a racist God that hates them because of their color. Help them understand that God is an equal opportunity employer, as I explained it. But help them see that he's all about them being free and having that life more abundantly and being free indeed. Because that's the God that we serve. The God that we serve is an awesome, mighty, powerful God that is not here to discriminate, but to use any and everybody that allows themselves to be used. Whosoever will. That's who he's after, the whosoever wills. Whoever will accept him and believe in his son Jesus and believe that he is the only way to him. That's what he's looking for. So with all that said, thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to pray us out of here. Let's hop out of here. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this series. I'm excited about it. And Lord, I pray that people will tune in and listen, that they will learn more about you, that they would learn that you're not this hateful God that you've been made out to be, but that you're somebody who in these last times, you're going after everybody, the whosoever wills. You're going after any and everybody that will accept you as their God, their one and only God, Lord. Lord, I just thank you. And I pray that people have the ears to hear and the hearts to receive not only this message, but that they get to a point where they realize that this racist spirit that they have, or this prejudice that they have about them, or this pride that they have, can hold them back. No matter what color they are, it will hold them back from fully feeling your love, from fully getting more of you in them. They've got to be willing to let go of their fleshly, hateful mindset so that they can have less of themselves and more of you. And when that happens, you can use them more, and you can use them in greater ways than they ever imagined, because you can use them to touch more lives and help more people when they are not automatically racist or prejudiced against anybody and everybody who doesn't look and act just like them. Lord, I love you. I give you the praise, the glory, the honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.